16-year-old Owen stepped out of the transport shuttle and looked up at the massive structure before him. Zenith, 7 Academy floated in the middle of space, a gleaming monument to martial excellence and alien power. His stomach twisted with a mix of excitement and fear. He was here. Finally here. The exchange program had accepted him, and now he would train alongside the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Owen pulled his small bag closer and walked through the entrance doors. The Academy's main hall was enormous, with ceilings that seemed to stretch into infinity. Beings of all shapes and sizes moved through the corridors. Some had 4 arms. Some had crystalline bodies that sparkled like diamonds. Others were covered in thick armor plating. Owen felt very small, very human, very fragile. He made his way to the registration office where a tall silicate instructor named Vex was sorting through files. Master Vex's body was made entirely of crystal, and when light passed through him, it created rainbow patterns on the walls. He looked up at Owen with something that might have been confusion or disgust. It was hard to tell with a being made of crystal. "You are the human?" Master Vex said. It was not a question. "Yes, sir. I am Owen. I am here for the exchange program," Owen replied, trying to sound confident despite his racing heart. Master Vex set down his files and walked around Owen, examining him as if Owen was a broken piece of equipment. "Interesting. We have never had a human student before. Tell me, why would someone so fragile want to train in a place like this?" "I want to become strong. I want to learn," Owen said simply. Master Vex made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Well, you certainly have the body type for learning theory. Perhaps you could work in the library. Come, let me show you the training hall." They walked through a long corridor and Owen's apprehension grew with each step. When they finally entered the main training hall, Owen's breath caught. It was massive. Hundreds of students were practicing combat techniques, and they all looked impossibly powerful. A group of Vernathi warriors trained in one corner, their 4 arms moving in perfect synchronized strikes. Their exoskeletons gleamed like polished metal. In another section, gravity-adapted Zorgons threw each other across the hall as if their bodies weighed nothing. And then Master Vex led Owen to his new training section. 20 other students were already there, and they all turned to look at him. Owen immediately recognized that he did not belong. These beings were all at least 7 feet tall. Some had 2 heads. Some had tentacles instead of arms. One creature had skin that seemed to shift colors based on its emotions. And they were all staring at Owen. "Everyone, this is Owen," Master Vex announced. "He is human. He will be joining our academy for the exchange program. Please try not to break him. He is the only one we have." A few of the students laughed. A massive Vernathi warrior with thick armor plating covering his entire body stepped forward. His name was Kroth, and he had already earned a reputation as one of the strongest students at the academy. He was nearly 9 feet tall, with 4 powerful arms and mandibles that clicked together when he smiled. "A human," Kroth said, his voice rumbling like distant thunder. "I have heard about your species. You are from the backwater planet Earth. You have no natural weapons, no armor, no special abilities. You are basically small, soft animals." Owen felt his face flush. "I am here to learn and train like everyone else," he said, trying to keep his voice steady. Kroth laughed. It was not a kind laugh. It was the laugh of someone who found something amusing and pathetic. "Yes, well, we shall see how long you last." For the next 3 hours, Master Vex put all the students through basic training drills. He had them practice strike combinations, defensive stances, and footwork patterns. Owen tried his best. He moved through each exercise with focus and determination. But compared to the other students, he was slow. Very slow. His strikes looked weak. His movements looked clumsy. The other students performed the same techniques with incredible speed and power. At the end of the training session, Master Vex called everyone to the center of the hall. "Now we will do some light sparring practice," he announced. "Simple combinations only. Nothing dangerous. I will pair you up." Owen's heart began to pound. He hoped Master Vex would pair him with someone smaller. Someone closer to his own size. But Master Vex looked at the group and then looked at Owen. "Owen, you will practice with Kroth," Master Vex said. "Do not worry. Kroth will go easy on you." Kroth's mandibles clicked together in what must have been a smile. "Of course, Master Vex," he said. "I will be gentle." Owen and Kroth faced each other in the training circle. Around them, other students stopped to watch. It was clear that everyone was expecting something entertaining. They were expecting Owen to fail. "Come," Kroth said, taking a loose fighting stance. "Show me what a human can do." Owen moved forward carefully, throwing a light punch toward Kroth's shoulder. Croth could have blocked it easily. He could have countered. But instead, Croth did something different. He barely moved one of his lower arms. He barely nudged Owen. It was not even a real strike. It was more like pushing away a piece of paper. Owen flew backward. He crashed hard onto the training platform, his back and ribs slamming against the solid surface. The air exploded from his lungs. For a moment he could not breathe. He could not move. He could only lie there, gasping for air as pain bloomed across his entire body. The entire training hall erupted in laughter. Every single student who had been watching burst into fits of amusement. Even some of the instructors who had gathered at the edges of the hall were chuckling. "I told you, Master Vex," Croth said proudly. "Humans are too fragile for serious combat." Master Vex shook his head slowly. "Indeed. Owen, perhaps you should consider a different path. Perhaps administration. Or perhaps you should simply rest and recover. Either way, training is finished for today." Everyone dismissed. As the other students filed out of the training hall, laughing and talking, Owen pulled himself up slowly. Every muscle in his body screamed with pain. But the physical pain was nothing compared to the deep, burning shame he felt in his chest. He had been here for only a few hours and he had already become a joke. The entire academy was laughing at him. That night, Owen sat alone in his small quarters in the academy's student housing section. He looked out the window at the infinite darkness of space and the distant stars. He thought about his home on Earth. He thought about his family who had believed in him. He thought about how he had worked so hard to earn a place in this academy. And in that moment, sitting alone in the dark, Owen made himself a promise. A promise that burned with the intensity of a star. He would not go home a failure. He would not give up. He would become so strong, so skilled, that everyone who had laughed at him today would be forced to respect him. Croth would regret the day he underestimated a human. Master Vex would have to eat his words. Everyone in this academy would learn that humans should never be underestimated. Owen clenched his fists. The pain in his ribs was nothing. The laughter of the other students meant nothing. He had just begun his journey, and by the end he would prove to the entire galaxy that humans belonged among the greatest warriors of all. Owen did not sleep that night. He lay in his bed, staring at the ceiling, replaying the moment over and over again. The casual shove from Croth. The laughter of hundreds of students. The pain in his ribs that made it difficult to breathe. But beneath the pain and shame, something else was growing inside him. A fire. A determination. A refusal to accept defeat. The next morning, Owen woke up early before the sun rose over the academy's observation decks. His entire body ached. His ribs were bruised a deep purple color. Moving hurt. Breathing hurt. But he pushed through the pain and made his way to the academy's main corridor. He needed to understand something. He needed to know if there was any hope for him at all. Owen had heard rumors about the academy's archives. A vast library hidden in the lower levels of the station where records of thousands of civilizations and their combat techniques were stored. Records that went back centuries. Records that held the secrets of every fighting style known to the galaxy. If there was a way for a human to compete against these powerful aliens, the answer would be in that library. He took the elevator down to the lower levels. The academy's lower sections were quieter, darker, and much less crowded than the main training halls above. Owen walked through empty corridors until he found what he was looking for. A massive metal door with ancient symbols carved into its surface. The archives. The door opened when Owen approached it, as if the academy had been waiting for him. Inside, the library was breathtaking. Shelves stretched upward into shadows, filled with countless data tablets, ancient texts, and holographic records. The air hummed with the energy of stored information. Owen felt like he had stepped into the heart of the galaxy's collective knowledge. For the first 3 days, Owen barely left the archives. He would wake up early, skip his official training sessions, and spend every moment reading and studying. He read about Vernathi physiology and how their 4 arms gave them incredible combat advantages. He studied Zorgan biology and learned how their gravity-adapted bodies made them nearly impossible to throw or knock down. He examined detailed accounts of silicate warriors and discovered that their crystalline bodies could deflect weapons that would cut through ordinary flesh. But then Owen found something that changed everything. It was a section of the archives dedicated to ancient Earth martial arts. There were texts about judo, kung fu, aikido, and wrestling. Techniques developed by humans hundreds of years ago when humans had to learn how to fight beings larger and stronger than themselves. Owen read about the principle of using an opponent's momentum against them. He learned about pressure points and nerve clusters. He discovered that there were ways to defeat a stronger opponent if you understood how their body worked. One particular technique caught his attention. It was called joint locking. The ancient texts explained how, by applying pressure to specific joints and angles, even a smaller person could immobilize a much larger opponent. If done correctly, the larger opponent would have to choose between surrendering or breaking their own bones. It was elegant. It was brilliant. It was exactly what Owen needed. Owen spent the next week diving deeper into these ancient Earth texts. He made copies of every diagram, every technique description, and every principle he could find. He studied the mechanics of the human body and compared them with the physiology of the other species. And then he made a remarkable discovery. Humans had something that no other species seemed to have in the same way. Humans had neuroplasticity. It was mentioned in only a few of the ancient texts, but the concept was clear. The human brain had an incredible ability to adapt, to learn quickly, and to reorganize itself in response to new challenges. While Vernathi relied on their inherited strength and Zorgans depended on their biological gifts, humans could learn and adapt at speeds that were almost impossible for other species. Owen realized that this was his advantage. Not strength. Not speed. Not natural weapons. His advantage was his mind's ability to learn and adapt faster than anyone else in the academy. He began planning a secret training routine. Every evening after the official training sessions ended and the academy grew quiet, Owen would sneak down to the maintenance corridors in the lower levels of the station. These corridors were empty, forgotten spaces where no one ever went. They were the perfect place to train in secret. Owen started by practicing the basic movements from the ancient Earth martial arts. He performed thousands of strikes, kicks, and defensive maneuvers. He practiced until his muscles remembered the movements without his conscious mind having to direct them. He practiced until the techniques became part of his body's natural response. But Owen did not just practice blindly. He studied his opponents. He watched recordings of Krotha's previous matches, analyzing every movement, every pattern, every habit. He noticed that Krotha always led with his upper left arm when attacking. He saw that Krotha had a tendency to overextend his strikes, leaving his shoulder vulnerable. He observed that Krotha's footwork was predictable and followed certain patterns. And then Owen found Krotha's weakness. It was the neural cluster at the junction where Krotha's shoulder connected to his neck. This was the area where the nervous system converged. If Owen could strike this point with enough precision and force, he could temporarily disable Krotha's arm. It would only last for a few seconds, but a few seconds was all Owen would need. For 3 weeks, Owen trained in secret. Every evening he would spend 4 hours in the maintenance corridor, practicing the same sequences over and over again. Strike the neural cluster. Execute the joint lock. Perfect the timing. Reduce the wasted motion. Make every movement count. One evening, as Owen was practicing his joint locking techniques on a training dummy, he heard a sound. Footsteps. Someone was coming. Owen's heart jumped. He had been caught. The academy would punish him for training outside of official sessions. They would probably expel him. But when Owen turned around, he saw it was not a security officer. It was teacher Lyra, the silicate instructor. Her crystalline body caught the light as she walked toward him. She was tall and elegant, and her movements had a grace to them that Owen had always admired. "I have been watching you," Lyra said. Her voice sounded like wind chimes, beautiful and strange. "For 3 weeks you have come here every evening. You have been training in secret. Do you think the academy does not know?" Owen's heart sank. "I'm sorry, teacher. I was just trying to become stronger," Lyra interrupted. "Yes, I know. And your approach is very interesting. It is not the way of our people. We rely on our natural gifts. But you humans, you are different. You do not have natural gifts, so you must create your own advantages through intelligence and adaptation." Lyra moved closer to Owen. "You will challenge Krotha soon," she said. It was not a question. It was a statement of fact. "How do you know that?" Owen asked, surprised. "Because I can see it in your eyes," Lyra said. "You have chosen your path. You are determined. And your approach, it honors the oldest principle of combat. Adaptation. Perhaps your species has been underestimated for too long." Lyra reached out and placed her hand on Owen's shoulder. "When you face Krotha, remember this. Intelligence is armor too. Strategy is as powerful as strength. And sometimes the smallest warrior can defeat the largest enemy if they are clever enough." Then Lyra turned and walked away, leaving Owen alone in the maintenance corridor. But he was no longer afraid. He was ready. Word spread through the academy like wildfire. A human was challenging Krotha to a sanctioned duel. At first, nobody believed it. The announcement was made during the evening meal in the academy's massive dining hall. Master Vex stood before hundreds of students and formally read the challenge that Owen had submitted that morning. The entire hall fell silent for a moment, and then the laughter began. It echoed off the walls like thunder. "A human challenging Croth?" one student said loudly. "This will be the shortest match in Academy history. The human will be knocked unconscious in 5 seconds, another student predicted confidently. "I give him 10 seconds before his bones start breaking," a third student added. Owen sat alone at a table in the corner of the dining hall, listening to all the predictions of his failure. He did not react. He did not show any emotion. Inside, though, his heart was beating faster than it ever had before. This was it. This was the moment he had been working toward for 3 weeks. This was the moment when everything would either come together perfectly or fall apart completely. Croth sat at the opposite end of the dining hall, surrounded by a group of admirers who were congratulating him on his upcoming easy victory. The massive Vernathi warrior was laughing loudly, his mandibles clicking together in amusement. He did not seem nervous or concerned about the match at all. Why would he be? He was 300 pounds heavier than Owen. He had 4 arms instead of 2. He had thick armor plating that could withstand laser fire. Owen was a fragile human teenager. There was no logical reason for Croth to be worried. That night the betting began. Across the academy, students and faculty members placed wagers on how quickly Croth would defeat Owen. The betting odds were astronomical. Some students bet that Owen would lose in the first 5 seconds. Others bet on 10 seconds. A few optimistic souls wagered that Owen might survive for 30 seconds before being knocked unconscious. But not a single person placed a bet on Owen actually winning. The thought was simply too ridiculous to consider. Owen learned about the betting when he overheard 2 students talking in the corridor. He felt a strange mix of emotions. Part of him was intimidated by how certain everyone was of his failure. But another part of him felt confident. They did not know what he had been training for. They did not know about his secret sessions in the maintenance corridors. They did not know about the techniques he had learned or the weaknesses he had identified in Crotha's fighting style. Their confidence in Crotha's victory was based on assumptions and expectations. Owen's confidence was based on preparation and knowledge. The day of the challenge arrived. The Academy announced that the match would take place in the Grand Arena, a massive circular chamber that could hold thousands of spectators. The arena had been constructed specifically for important duels and competitions. It had reinforced walls that could withstand powerful impacts. It had viewing platforms for dignitaries and faculty members. It was one of the most impressive structures on the entire space station. By midday, the arena was already filling with students and instructors. People came from all over the academy, eager to witness what they believed would be an entertaining display of human weakness. News of the match had spread beyond the academy as well. Visitors from nearby space stations requested permission to attend. By the time the match was scheduled to begin, the grand arena was completely full. Thousands of beings sat in the viewing stands, excited to see a human get defeated. Owen spent the morning in the preparation chambers beneath the arena. These were private rooms where competitors prepared for their matches. He was alone, sitting quietly, meditating. He had learned meditation techniques from one of the ancient Earth texts. The practice helped calm his mind and focus his thoughts. He visualized the match in his head, running through his techniques again and again. Strike the neural cluster. Execute the joint lock. Maintain control. Move with precision. Every movement had a purpose. A preparation master came to check on Owen before the match. The master was a small alien with 4 eyes and skin that seemed to shimmer. He handed Owen a strip of cloth used to wrap around the hands for protection. "Are you ready?" the master asked. "Yes," Owen said simply. "I am ready." The master seemed surprised by Owen's calm confidence. Most competitors are nervous before facing Croth. "You seem very composed." "I have trained for this," Owen said. "I know what I need to do." The preparation master wrapped Owen's hands carefully with the cloth, creating a protective layer that would give his strikes more stability and reduce the risk of injury. As the master worked, he said quietly, "I have seen many matches in my time. Most beings rely on their natural gifts. But sometimes a competitor who has trained hard and prepared well can achieve surprising results. I hope you are one of those competitors." An hour later, Owen was called to the arena. He walked up the stairs that led from the preparation chambers to the arena floor. As he emerged, the sound was deafening. Thousands of voices echoed through the chamber. Some students were cheering for Croth. Others were just making noise, excited to see what would happen. Owen walked to the center of the arena and stood in his designated area. Then Croth emerged from the opposite side of the arena. The massive Vernathi warrior was enormous. From a distance, Owen had always known that Croth was large, but standing face to face with him in the arena, the size difference was truly staggering. Croth was nearly 9 feet tall. His exoskeleton gleamed under the bright arena lights. His forearms flexed and moved with incredible power. His mandibles clicked together, and he laughed as he looked down at Owen. "This will be entertaining," Croth said loudly, his voice carrying through the arena. "The soft human has come to be broken." The crowd roared with approval. Everyone seemed to agree with Croth's assessment. Master Vex entered the arena and stood between the two competitors. He was a tall, imposing figure. His 4 eyes looked from Croth to Owen and then back to Croth. "This is a sanctioned match," Master Vex announced, his voice magically amplified so that everyone in the arena could hear. "The rules are simple. The match ends when one competitor surrenders, loses consciousness, or can no longer continue. There are no time limits. There are no restricted techniques. This is a true combat test." Master Vex raised his hand. "Competitors, take your positions." Owen moved into his fighting stance. He kept his body relaxed but ready. His breathing was slow and controlled. His mind was completely focused on the task ahead. Croth took his position as well, spreading his 4 arms wide in an aggressive display of power. "Begin," Master Vex commanded, dropping his hand. The timer started. Seconds began counting down. Owen's challenge was about to begin. The arena fell silent. Thousands of spectators held their breath. The timer displayed 0 seconds, and then it began counting upward. 1, 2, 3. Croth did not hesitate. The massive Vernathi warrior lunged forward with incredible speed, all 4 of his powerful arms reaching toward Owen simultaneously. It was a display of raw, overwhelming force. The crowd gasped. This was exactly what they had expected to see. A human would be crushed beneath the weight of a superior being. But Owen had expected this exact attack. He had watched recordings of Croth's matches dozens of times. He had studied this opening move countless times. Croth always began with the same aggressive charge, all 4 arms extended, trying to grab and crush his opponent. It was an effective strategy against most enemies. Against most enemies, such overwhelming force would end the match immediately. Owen was not most enemies. As Croth rushed forward, Owen moved with perfect precision. He did not try to block the attack. He did not try to meet Croth's strength with his own strength. Instead, he sidestepped to his left with controlled footwork. It was a simple movement, barely more than a step. But it was executed with absolute perfection. Owen's body moved exactly where it needed to be. 4 seconds had elapsed. Croth's momentum carried him forward, past Owen. The Vernathi warrior's 4 arms grabbed nothing but air. For just a moment, Croth was slightly off balance, his massive body committed to a direction that no longer had an opponent in front of it. That was all Owen needed. As Croth passed by him, Owen pivoted on his heel with the grace of a dancer. His body rotated smoothly, and his hand shot upward with incredible precision. His palm strike connected with the exact spot he had been targeting for 3 weeks. The neural cluster at the junction of Croth's shoulder and neck. The meeting point where multiple nerve pathways converged. The impact was perfect. Owen had practiced this strike thousands of times. His aim was flawless. His timing was exact. His power was concentrated into a single, focused point. Croth's upper left arm went completely numb. It hung at his side, unable to move, unable to respond to his commands. The Vernathi warrior let out a sound of surprise and pain. He spun around quickly, faster than most beings could react. His 3 working arms launched immediately into a counterattack. 8 seconds had elapsed. Croth attacked with fury now. His 3 functioning arms moved in a devastating combination. One arm came at Owen from the left. Another came from the right. The third came from above. It was a complex, multidirectional assault that was nearly impossible to defend against. The crowd in the arena erupted with noise, certain that Owen would finally be hit. But Owen had prepared for this as well. He had studied this exact combination in Croth's fighting patterns. The Vernathi always used this 3-arm attack when one arm was temporarily disabled. It was a predictable response. Owen knew exactly when and where the attacks would come. Owen dropped his body low, bending his knees deeply. He dove underneath the sweep of Croth's upper arms. As he slid forward beneath the Vernathi's guard, Owen executed a perfect foot sweep to Croth's lower legs. He aimed specifically for a pressure point just above Croth's knee joint, the spot where the nerve cluster that controlled balance and stability was located. Owen's foot connected with perfect accuracy. Croth's leg buckled. The massive warrior lost his balance and began to fall forward. His 3 working arms flailed, trying to catch himself, but there was nothing to grab in the empty air of the arena. 11 seconds had elapsed. As Croth fell, Owen moved with him. This was the most critical moment of the entire match. Owen had only seconds to execute the final technique. He moved behind Croth as the Vernathi warrior fell forward onto his hands and knees. With Crotha's upper left arm still numb and useless, the warrior had only 3 functional limbs to support his massive body. Owen positioned himself perfectly. He grabbed Crotha's dominant upper right arm and applied a joint lock that he had practiced 10,000 times. His hands moved with surgical precision. He controlled the angle of Crotha's arm, positioning it so that any attempt to escape would result in immediate dislocation of the shoulder joint. The technique was flawless. The execution was perfect. 13 seconds had elapsed. Crotha's massive body went completely rigid. He was completely immobilized. His own weight worked against him now. The more he struggled, the more pressure Owen applied to his locked arm. The Vernathi warrior realized with terrible clarity that he had only 2 options. Option 1 was to surrender. Option 2 was to break his own shoulder by trying to escape. For a moment, the arena was absolutely silent. Thousands of spectators could not believe what they were seeing. A human had defeated Croth. A human had used intelligence and technique to overcome a warrior who was 3 times heavier and infinitely more powerful in terms of raw strength. "Yield," Owen said quietly. His voice was calm and controlled despite his racing heart. "Yield now." Crotha's body shook with tension. Every muscle in his massive frame was flexed as he realized the true situation he was in. Owen controlled him completely. There was nothing Croth could do. "I yield," Croth gasped. The words seemed to pain him as much as the joint lock itself. Owen released Croth immediately and carefully helped the massive warrior to his feet. Crotha's upper left arm was beginning to regain sensation now. He flexed his fingers, testing that the limb was still functional. He looked at Owen with an expression that was difficult to read. There was no mockery in his eyes. No dismissal. No arrogance. There was only one thing: respect. The arena remained silent for a moment longer. And then gradually the silence broke. First one student began to clap. Then another. Then another. Soon the entire arena was filled with sound. Thousands of beings were cheering. Some were cheering for Crotha's loss. Some were cheering for Owen's incredible victory. But most were simply cheering for what they had witnessed. The impossible had happened. Master Vex stepped forward into the arena center. The silicate instructor looked at Owen with his 4 eyes. And then, slowly and deliberately, Master Vex bowed. It was a gesture of honor reserved only for true warriors. "Welcome to the Academy," Master Vex said, his voice carrying clearly through the stunned silence that had fallen once more. 13 seconds. That was all it had taken for everything to change. 6 months had passed since that day in the Grand Arena. 6 months since Owen had defeated Croth in 13 seconds. 6 months since a human had proven that intelligence and adaptation could overcome raw power and biological advantage. The Academy was transformed. Word of Owen's victory had spread across the entire galaxy like wildfire carried on solar winds. Other academies requested information about Owen's techniques. Universities on distant planets asked for permission to study his methods. Martial arts organizations across the galaxy wanted to learn the secrets of how a human had defeated a Vernathi warrior. Owen had become famous. But more importantly, Owen had changed people's perceptions about what humans could accomplish. The Academy's board of directors made a decision. They offered Owen a position as an instructor. At just 16 years old, Owen became the youngest faculty member in the Academy's history. He would teach a new class called Human Adaptation Techniques. The class was created specifically to study the methods that Owen had used to achieve his impossible victory. On his first day as an instructor, Owen stood before a classroom of students. The room was filled with beings from a dozen different species. There were young Vernathi warriors eager to learn new fighting styles. There were silicate students who had never encountered anything like Owen's approach to combat. There were Zorgans, curious about methods that did not rely on gravity manipulation. And there were other humans, young people from Earth who had been inspired by Owen's story and wanted to attend the Academy themselves. Owen looked out at all of them. 6 months ago he had been the Academy's biggest joke. Now he was their teacher. "Strength is an advantage," Owen began, his voice clear and calm. "But it is not everything. Many of you in this room are stronger than I am. Many of you are faster. Many of you have natural weapons and natural armor. Some of you can survive in environments where I would die in seconds. But today I want to teach you something different. I want to teach you that intelligence, understanding, and adaptation are weapons that transcend any biological advantage. Owen walked across the front of the classroom. When I first arrived at this academy, I was weak. I was fragile. I could barely survive one casual shove from another student. But I had one advantage that I did not fully understand at first. I had a brain that could learn and adapt faster than most beings in the galaxy. Humans have a quality called neuroplasticity. Our brains can reorganize themselves. They can learn new skills at incredible speeds. We can see a problem and find a solution. We can observe our enemies and understand their weaknesses. A young Vernathi student raised one of his hands to ask a question. Teacher Owen, are you saying that we aliens cannot learn and adapt as well as humans? No, Owen said firmly. I'm not saying that at all. But what I am saying is that we all have different natural abilities. Your species has strength. The Zorgans have gravity adaptation. The silicates have physical durability. But humans have learning and adaptation. We are not the strongest, but we can become strong. We are not the fastest, but we can become fast. We can study our enemies and turn their strengths into weaknesses. Owen activated a holographic display on the wall. Images of his match against Kroth appeared, showing the 13-second battle from multiple angles. Let me show you what I mean. When I faced Kroth, I did not try to beat him with strength. I could never have done that. Instead, I studied his fighting patterns. I learned his habits. I identified his weaknesses. And I used that knowledge to create a strategy. The hologram showed the moment when Owen struck Krotha's neural cluster. Owen paused the image. This is the neural cluster at the junction of the shoulder and neck. Every being in this academy has one, though in different locations depending on your species' physiology. This is a weak point because it is where multiple nerve pathways meet. A precise strike here can temporarily disable an arm or cause disorientation. Owen resumed the hologram showing the foot sweep. And here, I targeted a pressure point above Krotha's knee joint. Again, every being has similar vulnerable points. You just need to study the physiology and understand where they are located. Over the following weeks, Owen taught his students the principles he had learned from the ancient Earth texts. He taught them about pressure points and nerve clusters. He showed them techniques for joint locking and balance disruption. He explained the concept of using an opponent's momentum against them. He demonstrated how smaller, weaker beings could defeat larger, stronger opponents through intelligence and technique. But more importantly, Owen taught his students something deeper. He taught them that every being, no matter what species they belonged to, had something valuable to contribute. He taught them that diversity of thought and approach made warriors stronger, not weaker. He taught them that the academy was not a place where the strongest dominated, but a place where all beings could grow and learn from each other. Kroth attended some of Owen's classes. The massive Vernathi warrior sat in the back of the classroom, listening carefully to every word. After one particular lesson about turning an opponent's strength into weakness, Kroth approached Owen. I have been thinking about our match, Kroth said slowly. I have been thinking about how I lost to you in 13 seconds. For months I was ashamed. I thought I had failed. But now I understand. You did not defeat me because you were stronger. You defeated me because you were smarter. You defeated me because you prepared. You defeated me because you understood something about combat that I had never learned. Thank you for saying that, Owen replied. I want to learn your techniques, Kroth said. I want to become a better warrior. Not stronger. Better. Will you teach me? Of course, Owen said, smiling. News of Kroth training under Owen's instruction spread quickly. If the great Kroth was willing to learn from a human instructor, then perhaps these new techniques had real value. More and more students began attending Owen's classes. The academy expanded the program. Additional instructors were hired to teach in different sections. Within a year, the academy's entire approach to martial training had changed. Students from all species now studied together. They learned from each other's strengths and weaknesses. They learned that different approaches to combat could be combined to create something even more powerful than any single technique. Other academies across the galaxy followed the academy's example. Human exchange students were recruited to every major martial arts institution. The techniques that Owen had discovered began spreading through the galaxy. Young warriors from every species began learning that intelligence and adaptation were as important as strength and speed. Owen received offers to teach at universities on a dozen different planets. He received invitations to compete in tournaments across the galaxy. He received recognition and honors from countless organizations. But the thing that made Owen most proud was much simpler than all of that. It was a letter that arrived from Earth. It was from a young girl named Emma. She was 9 years old and she had read about Owen's story. In her letter, Emma wrote that she wanted to become a martial arts instructor like Owen. She wanted to prove that humans belonged among the greatest warriors in the galaxy. Owen read the letter several times and each time he smiled. Emma would grow up in a galaxy that was very different from the one Owen had arrived in 6 months ago. She would grow up in a galaxy that understood human potential. She would grow up knowing that she could achieve anything if she was willing to work hard and think intelligently about the challenges she faced. That was Owen's true legacy. Not the 13-second victory. Not the black belt. Not even the teaching position or the fame. His legacy was showing the galaxy that humans deserved respect. His legacy was proving that the smallest, weakest being could become legendary through determination, intelligence, and heart. And somewhere in the stars above, that legacy would continue to shine for generations to come.